Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's professional development session on whiteboarding in Zoom. I know most of you, but just in case, I'm Dave Giberson. I'm an old instructional design coordinator from Online Learning Pathways, retired for some years, and I'm come back to do a little consulting as the pro from Dover in offering these professional development sessions on Zoom, which it seems we still need. Looks like many of you, at least, are going to be teaching online, even though you might have anticipated teaching a classroom course this semester. You may not be teaching in the classroom for 2 or 3 weeks anyway, depending on what the course is, and department, and the school. But so that makes classes having to deal with Zoom all that more timely at this point in time. We'll try to make this one useful to you because this session covers a gap that we often find in Zoom teaching, using Zoom as a virtual classroom. The Too often we give up in teaching via Zoom an essential basic instructional technology that we always have available in our classrooms. The whiteboard hanging on the wall may not be high tech, but it's an essential teaching tool, particularly in STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, math. I taught chemistry and biology for many years, and I can't imagine teaching in any venue or in any modality without a whiteboard or some virtual equivalent thereof. You got to be able to draw chemical equations or mathematical problems, mathematical symbols on the board, and there's just no really functional way to avoid to do without that capability in teaching those subjects and many others as well. I know that all of you from time to time will use that whiteboard and will miss it greatly in Zoom. Fortunately, there are virtual equivalents of several types to that whiteboard, which you can use in a Zoom class meeting. And we're going to talk about those today and how to use them, how to access them, and how you might use them. We'll start with so-called software whiteboard apps. These are applications that will throw a whiteboard or a white rectangle up on your computer on which you can draw and write in much the same way you can on the marker board on the wall in the classroom. There are quite a few of these and more of them every day, but I'm going to stick with two today to demonstrate the concept. The Zoom whiteboard, Zoom actually has a whiteboard app built into it. It's not the most powerful one out there, but it's very convenient because it's right there in the Zoom meeting and very easy to access. My favorite among all the others that are out there that I've tried is one called Google Jamboard. It's a free whiteboarding app that Google provides to anyone. It's one of their free Google Suite or G Suite applications. And it's got significantly more capability than the Zoom whiteboard app and is just about as easy and as convenient to use. So we're going to take a look at those two this morning and how you can use them to simulate or replace that physical whiteboard in the classroom. And one nice thing about these apps is very often they are actually a good deal more visible to your students and more easily seen by your students than the physical whiteboard in the classroom, particularly for the the back row crowd come in and stay as far away from you as they possibly can and are squinting, and trying to see what you're writing on the whiteboard up at the front of the room. These whiteboard apps will be right on the student's computer or their smartphone or their tablet, where they can view them. Indeed, they can expand them. They can zoom into them if they need to during a Zoom meeting. So there are certain advantages to these virtual whiteboards, even if there's a little bit of a learning curve for you, and a little bit of practice required to get facile with them. Just as we had to practice when we first started teaching, we had to learn how to write on there. We had to practice writing on the whiteboard on the wall. It's quite a different skill than writing on a piece of paper. It's something that you've all had to deal with over the years. You have a similar adjustment with these virtual whiteboard apps, but there are some things that will help with that, and we'll talk about that as well this morning. The things that will help using these virtual whiteboard apps include some enhancements for your mouse, or the input, mouse input to your computer. By default, of course, the mouse is your pointing device on a PC or a Mac, and that pointing device is what you use to write and draw on these virtual whiteboards. But writing and drawing with a mouse legibly, or in such a way that people can see what you're trying to convey, is almost impossible. Mice were just not designed for that sort of thing. They're designed to point and select and click and operate a graphical user interface, not to serve as a drawing tool or a writing tool. So it's just very difficult to do that cleanly with a mouse. So these are some things that will help. Especially useful if you're using your whiteboard app from a computer is a graphics tablet. It's basically just a rectangle of plastic with a stylus that you can write on, just as if you were writing with a pen or a pencil on a piece of paper. And except that what you write appears not on the graphics tablet, but on the screen in front of you. These used to be very expensive and difficult to obtain and cranky to use. But and I don't claim credit for this bit of insight, a faculty member who does a lot of this up at Miracosta presented or mentioned this particular graphics tablet that I've got up here in a session in one of our distance education institutes last year, and I went right out and got myself one when he mentioned that, because these things used to cost hundreds of dollars to get one that was big enough to do any good and it actually worked and was really useful. But this one I'm showing here, the XP Pen Deco 01 V2, is, let's see what it is today, $60 on Amazon. And I've seen it for less than that. I've seen it for $40 or $50 when they were feeling good. It's not the if I were a graphic artist, I probably wouldn't buy this whiteboard, or this graphics tablet, I should say. It's not the very best one out there, but for whiteboarding like we're going to do today, and not fine art, it's more than adequate. It's one of the best ones I've ever used. And it's one that is big enough. It's 8.5 by 11. It's the size of a full letter size sheet of paper. So it's big enough to allow you to actually write and draw a significant amount of stuff on the screen. And it's cheap. And it's plug and play. It's a USB device. You just plug it into the computer picks it up, and bingo, you're using it. And I'll show you how it works. Here's what it looks like in the flesh, sitting on my tabletop here. And we'll see that again when I demonstrate using it, when we're actually using one of these whiteboard apps. Angelo, you got a question? Okay, we'll come back to Angelo.
I put it in chat. May I?
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, certainly you may. Okay, Angelo, you have that. Okay, um, so it's a graphics tablet that's actually affordable and functional. It operates as a mouse. I'm moving it across the screen. Yeah, you don't see it so much in Zoom, but I am moving my mouse cursor across the screen using the whiteboard. So it's basically a second mouse, but it's one where you write with a stylus rather than trying to move a mouse and simulate writing and drawing. Another option for whiteboarding involves using your smartphone, either an iPhone or an Android phone. It's kind of small, but if you're doing some simple stuff, you can certainly utilize or draw and write on a virtual whiteboard application using your smartphone and a stylus that gives you a lot more precision than trying to do it with your finger. Think about trying to sign your name on one of those checkout terminals at the restaurant or whatever, where you whatever comes out bears no resemblance to your signature. You have to wonder why on earth they bother. So writing with your finger on a smartphone screen is almost as difficult as trying to use a mouse on a computer. But these little styli can make that a lot more legible. I found one that I like, he said. This is something from somebody named Miko. I have no idea where they are or who they are. But this stylus is dual natured. It has the rounded tip, which you typically see on styli for smartphones and tablets, but which really never seemed to me it's very difficult to tell exactly where you're going to write on a screen with one of those. But it also has this funky tip. Looks like it's a little rounded piece of plastic that makes the capacitive connection with the screen that allows you to write on it, and yet still gives you a fairly fine point and allows you to see where you're writing, because that little disc at the bottom is transparent. So this one works a lot better than most of the styluses I've tried to use, and is not terribly expensive either. 13 bucks for two of them, so they don't wear out on you real fast. If you have an iPad, and this only works on an iPad, uh, and only on certain ones, there's a device called an Apple Pen. It's a stylus that works very well on the iPad. It produces a very nice fine line. It is very easy to use. It looks and feels very much like a pen. The only drawback to the Apple Pen is that the minimum cost for one is about $100. But you can get versions of this technology, knockoffs, quite frankly, that work quite well and that cost, well, this one's about a third or less than a third of the cost of an Apple Pen and the cheapest Apple Pen, and it works quite well. And I'll show you this one as well. And as we go through and actually look at these, I'll put the links, the Amazon links here in the chat tool in case you're interested. Alrighty. So let's look at the Zoom whiteboard. How do we do this? How do we bring up the Zoom whiteboard? Well, there's not much to it. We share our screen. We do this during screen share in Zoom. And I'm going to share my Zoom screen here with you so I can show you how this works. Make sure I've got the right one. There we go. Okay, now you're seeing my Zoom screen. To get the whiteboard up, I go to the screen share button in the menu at the bottom of the screen. And instead of one of my screens or one of my applications, I select the whiteboard, which is always there as an option. And then I click share. And up comes the Zoom whiteboard. You're now seeing my Zoom, or seeing the Zoom whiteboard. What also comes up when I share this is my annotation menu. And if you go to the top of the screen where you're seeing this whiteboard, you'll see a little button labeled View Options. And that's a menu button. And if you click on that, you'll see an option in that menu for annotation. And if you click there, you'll get this these annotation tools. And the wonderful thing about these virtual whiteboards is that they are shareable. So, okay, you can do that with the one in the classroom by sending the students to the board, as they walk trudge the last mile up there, being, dreading the experience and so on. By default, these virtual whiteboards are shared with your attendees, so they can draw on it and write on it just as you can. Some of them have capabilities that will. You can, for instance, in Zoom, turn off their ability to annotate if you don't want that. You don't want people, drawing pictures in the middle of your presentation. But by default, they're able to annotate this. So, when you move your mouse cursor over the whiteboard, you can try to write with it. The mouse. And as I say, it's almost impossible to do it with the mouse. Or you can try to draw something. It's just painful. Very slow and very imprecise. That's supposed to be a hexagon. It's got not great. You have all sorts of annotation tools here in the Zoom whiteboard. You can type text. Rather than trying to write, you can actually type on it, which is something you can't do on the classroom whiteboard. You just click text. You can choose the color that you want the text to have from this format button here. You can also change line width here. You can make it thicker or thinner. And in the case of the text tool, you can change fonts. though I'd keep it to something, a nice sans serif font like an Arial or something like that. And then you just click anywhere on the whiteboard you want to add text and type. And then once you do that, you've got the, so that can be a lot easier to read if you prefer to type rather than write, particularly if you're having to use a mouse. That's a good idea. You have a drawing tool here. Help yourself. This is not going to be a great, this document is not going to be a great work of art or anything like that. The drawing, hit the drawing tool here. You can draw freehand lines, thin and thick. You can draw geometric shapes of all sorts, circles, rectangles, diamonds. You can put arrows in, and so on. Bunch of drawing tools. You have stamps. Give somebody a star there. You have a spotlight tool, like a laser pointer that you can click. Oops, I didn't get that selected. And you can move that around and point out various parts of the screen. You can do that with your mouse cursor, of course, but it's a little bit more visible with that little red highlight. For things that are just too ugly to be believed, you have an eraser, which you can just click and hold and erase anything under it. Again, you can change colors and so on there. You can undo the last thing you did or redo. You can also clear the entire, or you can clear everything off the whiteboard. You can clear just the drawings you've put up there as the host, or you can clear a particular viewer's drawings. If somebody has gone wild and put a bunch of stuff up there that you really don't want on there, you can clear a particular viewer's drawings. Or actually, I'm sorry, you can clear all the viewer's drawings other than yours. Sorry about that. Feel free to add more. You can also save these screens, these whiteboard screens. So if you fill this with useful information that you want to be able to share with your students later, it will save this whatever's on here as a standard graphics file, a PNG file or a program network graphics file that will work, that anybody can view. Anybody's computer is capable of viewing those. And you can take that file and put it in link it to a Canvas module or whatever, and the students can go back over whatever you've put on this whiteboard here. So let me clear this. And I'll go back to oh, that's too big. Let's go there. Bring my pen up and clear the drawings. Now, this gets a lot better, or you get a lot better with this, if you use the graphics tablet. If I pick up my stylus here, I can write on this very much as I can on a piece of paper with a pencil. Let me go back to the screen so you can see the results of it. And I can actually do things, I can actually write reasonably legibly on this. Say I'm going to write a mathematical equation. That's something that's very difficult to do without a whiteboard. Say I want to solve the equation 2x squared plus 10 equals 18. Okay, this is not higher algebra. I'm uh, I'm not a mathematician, but hopefully you'll get the idea. You could do this with any sort of mathematical symbols. So if I want to solve that equation, I can first, and it's absolutely impossible to do this with a mouse. It's not real easy without a little practice, even with the graphics tablet, because it's an unusual hand-eye coordination, because instead of watching the tip of the stylus as I'm writing, I'm watching the screen. And that doesn't sound like it should make that much of a difference, but it does. It requires practice to do this at all legibly. You can make your own judgments about whether I've practiced enough or not. But it is something that does require a little practice, but you can get quite good at it if you do a lot of it. And it's so much easier than trying to do this with a mouse. If you're going to be doing a lot of whiteboarding, a $60 graphics tablet is so worth it. Okay, so if I'm going to so 2x squared plus 10, if I'm going to solve this equation, I'm going to move 10 to the other side by subtracting it from both sides, right? I think I can remember enough to do that. So, fairly legible. So then 2x squared, and the 10's cancel out here. 2x squared equals 18 minus 10. Even I can still do that in my head. 8, right? So now I divide both sides of the equation by 2. Anything I do to both sides of the equation maintains the validity of the equal sign, right? That, and 2 over 2 is 1, so that gets rid of the 2's on the left. So we get x squared equals 4. I know only math teachers are laughing in their hats right now. Now to solve this very simple quadratic equation, I need to take the square root of both sides of that equation. Believe it or not, that's a square root symbol. So the square root of x squared, of course, is just x. And the square root of 4 is either plus or minus 2. Quadratic equations all have 2 solutions, right? So the 2 solutions for this equation are, for x in this equation, are plus 2 and minus 2. All right, again, not higher math, but you get the idea. You can do something that's very difficult to do any other way in a Zoom meeting. Because here you could always have this typed out in a document using a math editor in Word or something like that and present it to your students, but then you tend to present the whole thing, the whole solution at one time. They don't see it developing if you go through, and that anybody who's tried to teach anyone how to do math knows that, or algebra, knows that it's critical that you show the progression of ideas that you run through your mind as you're solving an algebraic equation. If people are actually going to benefit from the demonstration, and this allows you to do that very easily and very naturally, very similarly to what you would do in the classroom by writing this on the board. So that's the Zoom whiteboard and most of its capabilities. And of course you can have students participate here. They may, more than likely, they will either be using a mouse on their computers, but they might not. They might be using their smartphone or their tablet. And they can participate on the same whiteboard as you using those mobile devices. And if they have just minimal capability there, they can do it much more easily than they can write on the whiteboard and draw on it much more easily than they can if they're trying to use their mouse on their laptop or their desktop computer. And we'll see that. I'll demonstrate that here in a minute when we get to Jamboard. Any questions about the Zoom whiteboard? How to bring it up, how to share it with your students?
Dave,
Yes.
When students go in the breakout rooms, can they do a whiteboard? And if they can't,
Yes.
I mean, how should I set up my screen share? Is it for one person at a time, or if I want the students to do the whiteboard in the breakout rooms,
Right.
what should my screen share setting be?
Well, you don't set that up then. If you want them to use the whiteboard in the breakout rooms, they would just share their screens and select the one of them would share their screen and select the whiteboard.
Okay, so if I have my settings for Zoom as one person shares at a time,
Right.
then in breakout rooms, they will be able to do the whiteboard if one person
Yes.
shares,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one person, one student in the group will, so they choose one person, that person will screen share, and all of them will have access to the features and they will be able to type and stamp and whatever.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Cool. Great idea. So they can work problems with one another. But again, it's going to be easier if they have a smartphone or a tablet with a stylus. They're not likely to have a graphics tablet. The average student, $60 is going to be a pretty high bar to clear. But they all got smartphones. And you can do this quite effectively on a smartphone. As long as you're not too ambitious. You don't try to make the problems too complex or too or use too much screen space. It's something you try and find what works best for you. Great. Any other questions about the Zoom whiteboard? Alrighty. To finish up the whiteboard, we just kill our screen share. You can actually just close the whiteboard with the X in the upper right hand corner, and that will terminate your screen share. Now you're back to seeing my video feed. By the way, if you're not already in speaker view, you'll find it a lot easier to see what I'm going to do now by going to the View button in the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom window and selecting Speaker View. Click on View and select Speaker instead of Gallery or Immersive View. You're probably not in Immersive View, but you might be in Gallery View and seeing the Hollywood squares, in which case what I'm showing you is showing up very
Thank you.
small. So you want to go to speaker.
Thank you.
You bet. It just occurred to me I should mention that. Okay. Let's go now to Jamboard. Jamboard is a more fully featured whiteboard app. It is free, provided by Google. You do have to have a Google account. Most of us do. If you use Gmail, you have a Google account. There's one Google account for all of their resources. So if you have a Gmail account or a YouTube account or a Google Docs account, Google Drive, then you have access to all of Google's other free services like Jamboard. If you don't have a Google account, you can get one in about 5 minutes by going to accounts, plural, accounts.google.com. And if you don't have an account, you won't pop up there. You'll be given an option to create one. It's free. All you have to have is it's a lot easier if you have a smartphone because they're going to verify your identity by sending you a text. or a push notification, I forget which. And then you have to reply back with a code that you've received so they know that you're a human being and not a internet robot. And once you create that account, you'll have access to all of their free services, as I said, including a Jamboard. Let me find, I've got it open here somewhere. I thought, oh, there it is, first one. The URL for this is Jamboard, Jamboard, .google.com. Let me put that in the chat tool so you can get to that. There it is. You can just click on that link and go in. And if you have a Google account and you're logged into it, you'll go right into Jamboard. If you have an account and you're not logged into it, it'll prompt you to log in. Ask you which account you want, or if you have multiple Google accounts, it'll ask you which one you want to use. This is my Jamboard. These are just previous demonstrations or Jamboards that people have shared with me. Each one is a separate whiteboard entity. Now this is a little different from the concept with Zoom. Zoom, there's just one whiteboard, and you just use it while you're in there. If you run out of space, you erase and you draw some more, just like you would on the whiteboard in the classroom. But Jamboard is more like one of those classrooms that has multiple whiteboards, and maybe it may have several that are on a window frame type carrier where you can run them up and down and leave one whiteboard visible while you write on another, and so on. Those you still see those classrooms occasionally. But you can have as many Google Jamboard whiteboards as you like, and each Google Jamboard whiteboard can have several or up to many pages, so that you can flip back and forth between them and so on. To start a new Jamboard, first time you go in, you'll see this multicolored plus sign down in the lower right hand corner. You just click on that and you get a nice clean, don't even have to get out the rag and wipe it down, nice clean whiteboard, and you're ready to start. And by default there's one frame in there, but you can create more just by using the arrow here. Here are your tools down the left hand side. The top one is the obvious one, a pen. To activate that, just click on it and it's highlighted, and the color of the highlight denotes what color you're going to write in. The Jamboard doesn't have a vast number of colors. There might be some way to expand that, I'm not sure. But you have probably more colors than you'd normally have colored markers sitting on the physical whiteboard tray in the classroom, so it's adequate generally for this. If I want to, normally I probably write in black on white, that's your highest contrast. I can choose a pen, a marker, a thicker line, here's a pen, marker, not much difference, a highlighter, which is not quite opaque, and a brush, so I can paint, sort of, very faintly. I've got an eraser. I just select that. Get rid of all that stuff I've done so far. This is just my selection tool. This gives me back my mouse cursor. One of the neat features, that's all quite similar to the Zoom whiteboard. But now we start getting into cooler things. One of the neatest features of Jamboard is the sticky note feature. If you click on that, you can put a sticky note up on the whiteboard, just as if you were doing, like in a brainstorming session in a meeting, where you were writing ideas on sticky notes and slapping them up on the and pasting them to the whiteboard or to a flip chart or whatever. You can do that with Jamboard quite nicely. And you can just type what you want to appear on the sticky note. You can pick the background color that you want the board, so you can color code your sticky notes and save that. And then just click off of that, and there's your sticky note. You can move it around. You can make it bigger. It's a lot cheaper than buying those giant sticky notes for flip chart sessions, right? Those things get expensive. Here you can have the sticky note be as big as you like and put it anywhere you want. Very handy tool. It's not available in the Zoom whiteboard. And as you see, all you have to do to utilize the Jamboard in a Zoom meeting, I'm showing you this through another technology, but normally all you'd have to do would be to share the Jamboard screen, which I've just done. And then your students will be able to see whatever you're doing on the Jamboard. I'm going to go ahead and kill that because I like doing it this way better. So you can also add images to the Google Jamboard, which you couldn't do with the Zoom whiteboard. You can add an image. You can upload an image from your hard drive. You can find an image on the web that has a particular web address or URL and just put that in. You can take a picture with your camera and put that in. No camera selected. Let's see. Yeah, that's not going to work with my setup here because I'm using a different sort of camera. But if you just had a webcam attached and that was the one that you were using in Zoom, or not the one you were using in Zoom, the image seen by that webcam would just pop up here. You can do a Google image search if you want to find a cat. Surely find cat pictures. Pick one and insert it. It'll download that picture and insert it on your Jamboard. So you can pull up a picture of literally anything on the fly while you're lecturing and share it with your students. One of my favorites is to pull up a set of graphing axes. And let me show that I can get a new page to my Jamboard here just by clicking this right caret. I can add an image from my computer. Oh, and you can pull one from Google Drive, or if you use Google Photos, you can pull from there as well. But if I go to upload, I can browse for a particular picture. Like this. I can put that anywhere I like. I can make it bigger. A standard two-dimensional Cartesian coordinate system, X and Y axes. And let's say I want to graph a function on here. Again, my apologies for my rudimentary mathematical capabilities. But in addition to sticky notes and images, I can also do text boxes just as I could on the Zoom whiteboard. I can just bring that over here and I can type my equation. Y equals X squared. And then I can proceed, and this is where something like my stylus will come in real handy. I can draw a little, let's see. You occasionally have this problem with Jamboard. Let me see, rename that as no. Oh, didn't have my, that was simple. I didn't have my pen selected. Let's try that again. That's more like it. So I can draw a line there, vertical line. I probably couldn't do a lot better than that on a piece of paper. And I can Y here and X here. And I can do, let's say I'm going to go X values from -2 to -1 to 0 to +1 to +2. Well, what's X? Well, if X is -2, -2 squared is 4, so Y is 4 in that case. -1 squared is 1. 0 is 0. 0 squared is 0. +1 squared is 1. And 2 squared is, +2 squared is 4. That's about the most complex I can get. So I have a series of data points, and now I can demonstrate graphing those on a Cartesian coordinate system. If X is -2, I just go to -2 here, and then Y is 4, so there's my first point. I can circle that. That's not much of a circle. Maybe I've got an eraser. I can undo that. Notice I don't erase my image, just my very poor drawing. So let's try that again. I got to get back, got to remember to reselect my pen. So -2 to 4 is right there. That's a little better. And then go to -1 on the x-axis, and the y then is 1. So there's that point right there. And 0, 0, of course, is the intersection of the two axes. And then +1 and 1. So you can demonstrate things like this. You can do all sorts of mathematical, and here's 2 and 4. And if you're greatly daring, you could try to draw the curve of that parabola there in smoothly. Again, if I could draw, that's atrocious, but let's see. I can undo that and try it again. I've got an undo button up here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I know from experience that I'm awful at that. All right, that's sort of a parabola. You can get the point across even if your artistic skills are more autistic than artistic, but as is my case. But the obviously, and you could be a lot more complex than that, but this gives you capabilities, again, that you just don't have any other way in a Zoom meeting. And I'm sure you can think of lots of applications of this nature in your own subject. So, just to round out the tools here, and of course I did that with my graphics tablet. And I could equally easily have done it with a smartphone. I can I happen to have an iPhone here, but this will work with and just as well as an Android phone. There is an app. Let me steal a little of my subsequent thunder here by using my document camera. Oh boy, you can see how dirty my phone is. That's embarrassing. Get this a little higher so you can see more of this. This is a marvelous tool to have in Zoom meetings that has implications for whiteboarding. We'll take a look at it in a minute. But what I'm looking for here is my Jamboard app. Search for it. So I have way too many apps on here. Hopefully none of them are too embarrassing. There it is, Jamboard. There's an app for that on both iOS, Apple App Store, and Android, Google Play. And I can access my and I haven't. This one is just untitled at this point. I don't have that one here. Let's see if there it is. I can rename this Jamboard at any time just by clicking up here. We'll call this Demo for Class 128. 2022. And that should change on here as well. Yeah, there we go. I can access this by tapping on it. I can, let's get this landscape. It works a lot better in landscape mode. And I can go to the second page where I am there, and there I am. On if I wanted to participate in this on the smartphone, I can use my little stylus that I showed you a picture of earlier. There it is. Notice it's got that little transparent tip on it. It's a lot easier than trying to draw or write with my finger. And I can see exactly where I'm going to write here. So this is better in a lot of ways. So let's say if I wanted to take x to -3, he said. Oh, I do have to tell it I want to write. Little pencil icon down there. Now if I wanted to add a -3 here, I can do that, and reasonably accurately. And that, of course, is going to be 9. I didn't think to make my Cartesian coordinate big enough to actually plot that point, but I can write on this quite effectively. You do have to be careful not to let your fingers or your other fingers drag on the screen, or you won't. It won't talk to you, or it won't allow you to write. So this little stylus works quite nicely on smartphone. So your students can participate in something like this using their smartphones. You do have to give them access to this Jamboard in order for them to be able to do that. I can give that to you. If you, let me go back to the screen here, my computer screen. On Jamboard, as there is with most Google resources, there's a share button here in the upper right-hand corner. You click on that, and you can get a link for this that's unique to this Jamboard. And you can tell Google to share this with anybody who has the link by clicking here. And here's the link. It is a randomly generated URL that's unique to this Jamboard. You copy that link to your clipboard, and you put that link in your chat tool. There it is. If you want to try it, feel free to mess it up. This is not some great work of art we're going to save for posterity. And then you just say done. And now your students can load the free Jamboard app on their smartphones or their tablets, or they can just put that URL into they can just click on that link and bring it up on their computers. And they can participate in the whiteboard session that you're running, just as they were able to. There's somebody coming in, thanks. So, let's see, anything else here on Jamboard I need to show you? We've got shape. We can draw shapes here, as we could on the Zoom whiteboard. We select that. We have a variety of geometric shapes, including big arrows, like you want to call attention to something. You can just select that arrow, and then you can rotate it around and have it point right at something, and move it around, have it point right at the origin of the any way to get a math equation editor in Jamboard? No, you just get to draw the equations. If you're going to use an equation editor, you can do this in Word or Google Docs or whatever. But equation editors are so cumbersome in many cases. If you're going to do this in a classroom, you're going to write those equations on the board, right? Jamboard gives you the capability to do that in Zoom. And it has all these extra added little goodies, like these shapes that you can draw and move around and make bigger and smaller by clicking and dragging on the little handles there. So it again simulates your classroom physical whiteboard with enhancements. Some of these things you can't do on the physical whiteboard because you don't have all the little tools, unless it happens to be a so-called smart board. Indeed, you could always create mathematical equations in an equation editor and save them as images and then just import the images into Jamboard. That image import in Jamboard is one of the biggest advantages it has over the Zoom whiteboard, which doesn't have the ability to import an image, because it just gives you so much more scope for creativity. Like you could import a map image, and if you're teaching geography or history and you were showing the geographical location of various historical events and so on, you could bring that right up on the Jamboard, and you could draw and annotate over it, which it would be more difficult in the classroom, especially if you didn't have an old-fashioned transparency projector to do it, which you probably don't in those rooms anymore. And of course, all this stuff could be used live in the classroom as well. If you have a laptop or a desk, if you have a podium computer and a projector and so on, you can throw these things up on the wall and use them in lieu of the whiteboard, the physical whiteboard, if you don't feel like getting up and walking around. So there's just all sorts of possibilities with these applications. And remember, both of these are free. The Zoom Whiteboard's free to you because you have free Zoom accounts through the state. Jamboard's free to everyone. And you don't have to be an educator or whatever. So your students could use this themselves. Maybe the last tool we'll talk about here is the laser tool. It's a pointer, and you can just point at things with it. But if you click and hold your mouse button, you can highlight things on the screen. But then what the pointer writes goes away almost immediately, so you don't end up messing up your nice, neat drawing, or not so neat drawing, that you have created. So it allows you to highlight, there's your dependent, there's your independent variable, and so on. It allows you to highlight things on the screen ephemerally, temporarily. So a nice suite of tools here. And you can zoom into it as well. Oop. Let's get our pointer. So you can, if you need, and of course I shouldn't have done that. I just moved one element relative to another. But you can move the whole thing around and zoom in on this. Let's undo that. Go back to 100%. Or fit. There we go. I did move that element. Not a good idea. I can undo that. So, lots of capability. Pretty easy to use, especially if you have a graphics tablet or a smartphone stylus. I did promise you another type of stylus that I was going to show you on this. Let me get that. I have it charging here. If you have an iPad, and this works with, I think, the latest iPad mini, the 5th generation, or with second, third, and fourth generation iPad Air, or any full-sized iPad past the first one. You still have one of those. I know iPads are pretty popular devices, and if you have one of those, they are not cheap, of course. Let me put my document camera back on. We're going to talk more about the document camera here in a moment. Here's my iPad. And I have a Jamboard app on the iPad, just like on the iPhone. This will not work with an Android tablet. This device that I'm going to show you, this device right here, this so-called knockoff Apple Pencil. It is functional only on an iPad and only on certain models. newer ones. Anything from about anything from 2018 forward, it should work on. It is it functions as it's very easy to utilize because it's very natural. It's got a good feel to it, good balance. It is I do have to turn it on by touching this little button right here. This is the charging port. It's got a battery in it. You can charge it. It comes with a little charging cable. You just plug it into a smartphone charger and plug in that cable. It's a little USB charger. If I go into this demo, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Let me update this. There's the one we're working on today. And go forward to I can write on this exceptionally easily. Let me wake it up again. And again, I can't touch the surface with anything but the stylus. Okay. Oh, and I have to tell it I'm going to write. Move that over. Need to show you this time. There it is. Little pencil symbol down here. I have to tap that in order to activate and then select my pen, which I've already got selected. Now I can write on the Jamboard. And this works a lot better than that little universal stylus that'll work on any smartphone or tablet, iPad, iPhone, Android phone, Android tablet. But this one just works really well. It's well worth the $30. I'm not sure the Apple Pen is worth $100, but this one seems to work just as well, and it is quite functional, quite easy. This may be the easiest way to whiteboard I know of. With an iPad and this pencil with a virtual whiteboarding app. And this will work equally well on the Zoom whiteboard. So that's a nice addition to your kit if you're going to be doing a lot of this. Here is that item. Put that in the chat tool. Knock off Apple Pencil. All right, there's that one. The that little universal stylus I mentioned earlier, I don't think I gave you that link. Let me do that while I'm thinking about it. Call it a universal smartphone / tablet stylus. Best one of those I've ever seen or used. Most of them are pretty difficult to use. So, it is quite possible, and these are things, of course, that are within reach of your students too. Those little universal styli, you got 2 of them for $12. And they almost certainly have a smartphone, maybe a tablet, for entertainment and communication purposes, quite apart from their education. And many of them may be using their smartphones to access your Zoom sessions and to access Canvas anyway. So this is another thing they can do with the smartphone. If you are doing whiteboarding, they can participate with pretty good ease. through their by using their mobile device. Let's go back to the PowerPoint here. And there's one major way to do whiteboarding that we haven't mentioned yet, though I've sort of presaged it here by showing you the mobile device screens with my document camera. And that indeed is whiteboarding with a document camera. This is the document camera I am using to show you my mobile device screens. It is put out by a company called IPVO. I have no idea what that stands for, though I've been using these for many years. I first saw one of these over at Miramar, as a matter of fact. Somebody in IT over at Miramar, somebody had ordered an earlier version of this, and I saw it, and I said, God, that's a neat idea, and promptly stole the idea. This is a camera that you can get on Amazon. It's a simple USB type camera. It's basically a tricked up webcam. Indeed, you can use it as a webcam if you like, because it's got this articulated stand that allows you to rotate it around and turn the camera head in all different directions. So you can use this as a webcam as well as a document camera if you want to. But it's ideally suited for use as a document camera. You just put whatever you want to share with your students underneath the camera here, and they can see it, just as I was doing with my mobile devices here. But there are a lot of these available. They got to be very, very popular early in the pandemic, in March and April of 2020, and they became unobtainium. You couldn't find them anywhere. They sold out. All the manufacturers sold out almost immediately because it's such a useful tool when you're teaching through Zoom, as we'll see here. And everybody was suddenly teaching through Zoom or something equivalent. So they became very hard to get. Fortunately, that is largely ceased, though Lord knows with Omicron, if they're going to become harder to find again. Right now you can get one on Amazon, and it's only $5 over list price on Amazon. You expect to get a discount on Amazon, but no. During the early months of the pandemic, once or twice I saw one of these offered by some scalper for like $200 or $300. The list price is $99. We're only a tiny bit over list price today. It's not a free resource, but it's so useful that if you're going to be teaching a lot on Zoom, it's certainly worth the investment if you can swing it. And the way it works, of course, it just works as a camera in Zoom. And you select it as a camera in Zoom, and you see whatever the document camera sees, whatever's underneath it. That's what I've been, it could be a three-dimensional object like my iPad or whatever, but much more usefully, it can be just a piece of paper. Don't have it real well lined up there. I can fix that. There's a little notebook. I just sat that down underneath it. It helps if you can raise the document camera up a little bit. The stand is not quite tall enough to give you like an 8.5 by 11, or even in this case, a smaller piece of paper all at one time. So the high-tech solution to that typically is you put the document camera up on a cardboard box or some other, or a book, couple of books or something like that. to raise it up. You can buy a complicated device to to enhance that stand, but a cardboard box works just as well. So there's your high-tech setup, and this to me is absolutely the best way to simulate a whiteboard in a Zoom meeting, because all I have to do is select that document camera as my video input source in Zoom, and pick up another bit of not so high-tech instructional equipment, a Sharpie, a fine point Sharpie, and now I can just draw on this. I'm an organic chemist, so if I'm teaching organic chemistry, I can show people, and this is so much more natural even than the using the good stylus on an iPad or using the graphics tablet on the computer, because I'm actually writing with a standard pen on a piece of paper, which is by far more natural and easier to do. So if I want to, assuming of course you have the problem with the pen maybe drying up. Looks like mine's getting a little iffy. Let's say I want to show that it's possible to take the chemical benzene, which you want to stay away from like the plague, and treat it with nitric acid and sulfuric acid, just as I'd write this on the whiteboard, and a lot of heat, and create a compound called nitrobenzene. All right? There's no way to present this sort of thing in process like this in a Zoom meeting other than this that I can think of, or one of the virtual whiteboard apps, but it's so much easier on paper. Then I can take this and I can do it again. And make dinitrobenzene. And nitro groups are so-called meta directors, so I get so-called meta dinitrobenzene, and so on. I can draw things, I can draw a Cartesian axis and show graphs on it and things like that. Anything I can do on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper in any subject area. Of course, I don't have the neat tricks here of being able to put images, paste images onto this and so on. If I want to do that, I just have to pick up an image and throw it on top of it there. My favorite birthday card here. Little Pacific Northwest humor. So with this document camera, you can show your students anything that you have. You can put a book under this, though you'll have to get a thicker cardboard box to get it up higher, but you can put a book under it and share pages out of a book with them. Anything you can do with that document camera that you find on the podium in many classrooms at the district, you can do with this one. And this one costs a tiny fraction of what those document cameras cost. I know what those cost. I used to buy those. And this one's quite a lot cheaper, and it works a lot better with Zoom. So this is a technique that is just absolute gold in Zoom meetings, and quite frankly, it's a lot simpler in the long run than using the virtual whiteboard apps, though of course in this case the students can't participate with you. So if you want a participatory session, you'll want to use one of the virtual whiteboard apps. But if you just want to present, you'll find this, I think, a lot easier, a lot simpler to do. And of course, you're not limited to one sheet of paper. You can just turn the page and have a blank page and keep going. So it's a really versatile whiteboarding technique. There's still that hurdle to get over of the cost, however. But there is another way to do this in a Zoom meeting or offline, and that's to just use your smartphone or a tablet if you prefer, which has a nice camera in it. You can join the meeting using this device. Put that on the. Of course, there's a Zoom app for smartphones and tablets. Free. Download it from your app store, install it. You can join a meeting. I do need the meeting ID. Or I can tap on a join link for a Zoom meeting, just like you did to get into this one. You know, my meeting ID is always the same. It's 391. See if I can remember it. 499 5946. I'm logged in as my dog here. Yeah, sure, I agree. I can join with video. I want my video. I don't want sound here. Somebody's recording this, I knew that. And I don't want audio. If you're joining a Zoom meeting from multiple devices in the same room, only one of those devices can have the audio enabled. Otherwise, you get feedback, and which can reach eardrum bursting levels if you're not careful. So don't have audio functional on more than one device in the same room in a Zoom meeting. Just another tip. All right, there I'm in the meeting there with that one. And I'm going to find that one here, and I'm going to spotlight it. So it's spotlighted for everyone. Make sure I'm still in speaker view. All right, so now I can use the camera in this thing. Let's see. All right. Later. And I can just put it over top of the camera, and I need to switch cameras, obviously, to the forward camera. I'm on the selfie camera here. All right. And I can hold... do that. Yeah, I can just hold it over here. And I've got a poor man's document. Well, not a poor man, because you got to buy the smartphone, but I've got a smartphone document camera. There's just one problem with this. What's that?
Holding it steady.
Yeah, my arm's going to get tired after a while, and I'm not that steady to start with. Fortunately, there are lots of clever people in the world who have figured this out. Let me unspotlight that and put myself back here. All right, there's my document camera, but let me go back to another share here and pull up my PowerPoint presentation and go to the last slide. These are ideas for improvising document cameras using your cell phone, some of which I found online, one of which we came up with ourselves. This one here is our idea. We took an old smartphone and lashed it to a paint stirrer with a rubber band, and then held that up above the piece of paper with an improvised pedestal here of an old computer, a cardboard box to add a little more height because the computer wasn't quite tall enough, and then we grabbed the nearest heavy object that we had handy to hold the uh, paint stirrer in place, and we joined the meeting with a Zoom meeting with a smartphone. Or if you just want to make a recording that's not live, you can just use the video app on the phone. And you can, of course, there's a microphone in here as well, so we can draw on the piece of paper, write on the piece of paper, and talk about it and so on. And it works like a charm. And the cameras in these smartphones are better than the cameras in the document camera. So you can actually get an even sharper image. And here are some other neat ideas. Somebody's taken a cuties box and cut a hole in it and put their iPad over the hole with the camera sticking down, and has put 4 little legs on there. I think those are rulers or something like that they've taped to the cuties box. I like that one. Or here's the coffee can solution for holding your iPad or your Android tablet up in the air. The books and oven rack from your toaster oven with the camera on the phone looking through the the spaces in the oven rack, I thought was pretty cute. Or maybe my favorite one, they've mounted a CD to the top of their laptop, and they've canted the CD down at an angle. It's a little hard to see, but it's the image from the paper is going up onto the CD and bouncing into the built-in camera in the laptop, which has been tipped over a little bit. So I give that one high grades for ingenuity. And these are by no means the only solutions that have been tried. If you just go to Google Images and search for improvised document camera, you'll see all sorts of ideas. And quite frankly, this works just as well as the, well, in many ways, at least the image is every bit as good as the image you get from a $100 document camera, and you probably already have the smartphone or tablet. So this is my favorite slide in this presentation, what I always like to end with here. It's amazing what you can do with a device that you already have and a little ingenuity. So you don't have to spend a ton of money that you haven't already spent to get into whiteboarding. So that's the end of my presentation. And let me take a look at the chat tool here to see if I've missed anything. To use an iPad to write, do I simply join the Zoom meeting from my iPad? Yes. You can also, remember, if you're presenting and you're using your iPad as the host, you can also share iPad or a smartphone. I'm specifically iPhone in this case, I should say. You can always share the image share the screen from your iPhone or iPad in Zoom. You can do that by let me share my Zoom screen here a second with you. Okay, now you're seeing my Zoom screen. If I share screen and go to my iPhone/iPad option here, which is the one after the whiteboard, and click share, It has to update the plugin, apparently. I've done this before. Every now and then it'll update this plugin. And now I have to do the share again. To ask it again to do that. And click share. I see, well, you're not seeing it, but I see a screen that tells me what to do on my iPhone or iPad. I make sure that for this to work, the iPhone or the iPad and the computer have to all be on Wi-Fi and on the same Wi-Fi network. So if your computer is plugged into your router by a wire and you don't have it on your Wi-Fi network, this won't work, won't work at all. But if everything is on Wi-Fi, this will work fine. Then you bring up your iPad or iPhone control panel, which you do by putting your finger in the upper right-hand corner of the screen and sweeping diagonally down toward the lower left. You have a button labeled Screen Mirroring on that control panel, and you select the option. I could be showing you this, come to think of it, if I put my document camera on. Let's do that. Let's back up here. He said. Okay. You just... Okay, I'm back to document camera. I'm going to kill the screen share here. All right. I just bring that down to the upper right. Again, like so. And there's screen mirroring. And I'll have an option here that has the word zoom in it. And I just select that. So let me do that. I can't show you that simultaneously, so I'll share. I am not sharing my screen. I'll share my Zoom screen with you first. Again, I'll share the iPhone, iPad, share that, do what I just showed you, tap screen mirroring, pick the option that has Zoom in it, in the name of it, and bingo. There's my iPad screen. And there I am in Jamboard. I can pick up my stylus here. And I can, still writing, I guess. I can write on the screen there. And that's even easier than using a document camera, as I was doing before. And I can control this thing from using my stylus and so on, or my fingertip. I have access to all my tools down here, so including images and sticky notes, Google Drive content. I can pull up images from my camera or from my image library, or I can use stickers. So it's sharing, if you have an iPad or an iPhone, it's very convenient during a Zoom meeting to do things like whiteboarding or other things you might do with your smartphone by sharing your iPhone or iPad screen with your attendees. And then when you're done, you just kill your screen share. Unfortunate that you can't do that with an Android phone or an Android tablet. I don't know quite why. I suspect it may be something missing in the Android operating system, because surely by now Zoom would have made that possible if it were easy enough. So, because a lot of people have Android phones instead of iPhones. Okie dokie. That was one question in chat. Looks like we've done everything else, so go ahead. Yes.
In the middle of your presentation that I was recording, all of a sudden my screen went white. And so I had to restart the computer and get back into the meeting. So I'll have to, I guess, go to the college website to get the recording.
Right, I am. Yep, I'm still recording all of this.
Okay.
And this recording, as are almost all of our sessions, will be available on our open on demand site
Yeah.
at
OLVID. Okay.
yeah, let me put that in the chat tool. I always like to do that before I finish. This is our on demand video site, video tutorial site. And it's http://sdccdolvid.org. There it is in the chat tool. This is also this link is in the signature on every one of my emails that I send out. You can always find it there as well. We have hundreds of instructional technology tutorials on here, including all of our workshop archives, our recordings of all of our professional developments, almost all of them, unless somebody forgets to press record. Wonder who that might have been. Doesn't happen very often. Or if there was a problem, if the recording glitched or something, that doesn't happen very often either. The vast majority of these are recorded, and they're available under this Workshop Archives button here. You just click on that, and it will show you. The most recent one was from the 21st, our instructional video production. I've got a couple others that are in process that I'll have up here soon. The most recent ones are on the top row, and the most recent one is in the upper left. And you just click on that, and you'll get access to the full recording of the session. You can play it, you can full screen it, so that it's in there. Quite good quality recordings, as you can see. The audio is usually quite good. The video is quite good. So it's just like being there. We're working on a methodology to make it possible for you to watch some of these recordings that you may have had to miss because the schedule didn't fit your schedule, and answer some questions about it and get flex credit for it without being there live. We're still working through the logistics on that right now, but hopefully at some point you'll be able to go to this to a Canvas site and find at least some of these recordings there and be able to watch them and answer some questions about them to prove basically that you've watched the entire recording. That's all we really care about, and then award yourself the flex credit. But we haven't quite as I say, worked out the process on that yet. But all of those recordings are available on this site, along with a ton of other stuff about Canvas, Zoom, Canvas Studio. We have student tutorials here on Canvas, Zoom, Canvas Studio, and miscellaneous topics. Or you can just go to all resources and see everything that's on here. There are hundreds and hundreds of video tutorials on here on lots of different subjects in online learning and instructional technology. And it's available to anyone 24/7, 365. You're welcome to share links with people at other institutions or whatever. It's a completely open, publicly available site. Okay. Any other questions? This loyal crew that's still here over 2 hours later. Well, almost 2 hours later. This one's a little shorter than some, thank goodness. Question on anything? You bet, Michael. Thank you for coming.
Dave,
Yes.
so what you're saying, let me wrap it up in like the big picture. The big picture is you could use the Google Jam, create your presentation or whatever you want to share, save it, and it's almost like saving a document that you could share in Zoom. Let's say if you wanted to have a meeting afterwards and say, this is what I've created.
It's exactly that, yes. Not like that, it is that.
That's the part that I actually missed during the presentation, was the part where you actually shared it with whoever was the participant or whatever.
Right.
So I'll have to go back to that, but
I am sure you see this screen behind me not through the magic of Zoom screen sharing, but through the magic of something called Open Broadcaster Studio.
yeah, yeah.
But I could just as easily have shared this screen with you using the Zoom screen share tool. It's just I don't have the flexibility that I have with OBS. But
Okay.
it would work just fine. So your students, but with the Zoom whiteboard, well, yeah, both with the Zoom whiteboard and with the Jamboard, you just share your screen, or in the case of the Zoom whiteboard, you actually share the whiteboard directly, or you share with Jamboard, you just share your Zoom screen, and the students see the Jamboard as you're manipulating it, and they can also pull it up on their own devices or own computers and participate if you allow it.
Well,
That's the big picture.
what I was planning on doing was actually taking a picture of a physical whiteboard, recreating it in Jam,
Mm-hmm.
and saving it because that would be clearer than handwriting. So that's what I was going to do for the professor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate it, and
That is certainly an option.
I'll get back to you on that issue with the
Outstanding.
discussion. Okay. Thank you.
And remember, of course, that everything we've done today on using any of these tools can be recorded for later playback. So you can do a whiteboard session that you can record and narrate, like a problem session in a math or a chemistry course,
Mhm.
and then put that on Canvas Studio or YouTube and give your students the link, and they can go through the process with you again. It doesn't have to be a live Zoom meeting, it can be a recording. Indeed, you can record it using Zoom and put it in the Zoom cloud. So that is you have that option with any of these techniques. It's not just a live presentation, it can also be recorded and provided to your students on demand later.
Yes, thank you. I think that's what we've been doing with the Zoom um, recordings.
Yes.
Okay.
As you will be able to see this later, should you desire, you can go back and look at a particular piece of it that you maybe wanted to remind yourself of at any time, as soon as I get it online, which should be sometime over the weekend.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anybody else have anything? As always, if questions come up, I'm delighted to hear from you. You can email me at dgibberso, no N on the end, at sdccd.edu. There it is in the chat tool. And my little avatar there, Boris Badenov. I was very much impressed with the Rocky and Bullwinkle show when I was a kid. And I'm always happy to hear from you. Send me a question, and I'll respond. I may make you a little video if it's a question that lends itself to that, and send it to you. Always happy to do that. Delighted to hear from you. All righty. If no one has anything else, I'm going to turn you loose to your Friday afternoon. Thanks so much for spending a good chunk of your Friday morning with me. That's very gratifying. Hope you found it useful. And I hope to see you again in another session soon. Take care. Have a great weekend and stay safe.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Dave, again.
My pleasure.